Welcome, beautiful creatures, to the Lightness of Being podcast, where we celebrate the dance of life and explore ways to find joy, laughter, and lightness, even when faced with challenges. Join me, your host, Monika Stefanik, as we step into the light and discover a realm of potential and possibilities for greater ease in our lives. Let's laugh, learn, and grow together. Welcome, beautiful beings, to this episode of the podcast. I have this amazingly powerful, super strong, somatic practitioner, Elizabeth Stauder. Yes, I got it right. Sitting beside me. Who is... I know, I was like, I'm going to cry. Don't do that. Don't do that with your face right now. I'm going to cry.
It's just like, I just have to appreciate the acknowledgement because it's like part of the healing of my journey. So thank you. Even just from the very beginning.
Yeah. So grateful to have you here. We are becoming new friends as we only met up officially, 2 days ago?
Mm-hmm.
And now we're here, which is amazing. And dropping into this space.
Yeah.
As we tread very lightly into a tender topic.
Yeah.
So, firstly, what's something that you're celebrating in your body, in your world right now?
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you led with that question. I have to say, like, as someone with like 5 things in Sagittarius, my easy thing to do is to like just go straight to the joy and be like, it's all good. It's like beautiful.
Yeah.
Big picture. We're getting there. And part of this whole journey has been to slow down and give each piece of the really hard journey its honor and dignity. But it's always easy for me to start with.
Love that.
Yeah, I'm celebrating like freaking resilience and like I'm celebrating just how like whenever I think like I've reached the center of my sense of empowerment, there's like another layer that like once I work through it, there's like even more of just like this incredible light that is like literally inside, like literally in the center of the being, like literally just I guess I'm celebrating the simplicity like within all of the complexity, which needs to be included. But like as it gets worked and sorted, like it really is like that clearing of the mirror or the glass that like spiritual teachers talk about. And like I'm in awe of it. Like I'm in love with it. Like it is my love, like the love of my life.
And to touch that deep innate light and source power within.
Yeah.
Such a beautiful space to get to tap into and remember that we have, because leading people in that direction in the work that we both do, I think.
Yeah. I was just thinking like someone recently was like, gosh, I admire like how patient you are with people. I couldn't like work with those kinds of like, you know, like, and I was like kind of like offended. And I was like, actually, like I'm in love with my clients and the people I work with because like to sit in the slow, like patience that it takes to trust that like healing will happen in a consent-based way instead of a way that like, hurry up, let's make healing happen way. To me, that is like that is ultimate free will, sovereign healing power. And you could say it's patience, but it's actually faith. It's not patience. It's actually like learning how to let healing happen and be a witness to it instead of trying to be the doer of it.
Yeah.
And that is so, yeah. Anyway, like I was like, I'm operating in a different paradigm than you. It's not patience.
It's not patience. It's a being. It's a presence.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the way you spoke to that, because that's where I feel like I'm shifting in my world and in my practice, because I do massage mostly. And so starting to shift people into this more of deep holding and deep presence of healing and getting to know and feel into their bodies. I think we talked about this the other day, how I'm very much like a feeler.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, how do we come into this space of like, I can help bring a space of touch into these areas that are holding whatever they're holding, tension and all of it, and bringing a deep space of presence into that and softening into it, instead of like, oh, I got to push, oh, I got to get deep tissue, oh, I got to go hard into this. It's actually like, okay, can we tap into the innate healing wisdom of the body?
Yeah.
Can we be really present with that and just allow the healing to happen?
100%.
But it does take patience and presence and attunement and a willingness to step into that type of a space on both ends, practitioner and client.
Yeah. Well, I love that this is how we're starting this conversation, because, there's multi-layers and facets to it, but ultimately, like in the largest sense of like, in the way that I see what's out of balance when you step away from the politics and even the ecology and all, but like in this larger sort of energetic sense, it is like, when we talk about free will, it is what we're describing. It's the how of the healing more than the what. And yes, it might be like better for someone to do such and such form of medicine and someone else to do such and such form of medicine. And this is not even getting into morality and all of that, but just like in terms of how we go forth and what we choose to do and what our bodies experience. To truly like move at the pace of consent in anybody's process, though, like to me, that is almost like, that speaks to the way that healing is about relationship more than it is about the particular medicine.
Healing is about the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. 100%. Right. And that goes. Yeah.
It's like
taking a cry.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. Because it goes even beyond life or death. And I think that's the gift of what I got to experience. Like I can say that now from my like Sagittarian who's like, like I got to experience dying before you die, and like realizing that death is not the ultimate enemy. Like death actually would have been like a relief. But the integrity, the relationship, like how we choose, not in a right or wrong kind of way, but in a like, what am I being called to in the greater sense, in the big picture of everything? Like, and to realize that to not be on track with that would be much worse of a fate than like dying and being in agonizing pain, even physically, So I don't think of my triumph as necessarily surviving a vaccine injury that easily could have killed me and that has killed many people. But rather the victory is in how I pivoted inside myself, to not judge myself for, anything, to be able to like sit in a moment where the easy thing to do would have been to just fade out and die because it was so painful to be alive, but to like check in with what my spirit, even though it felt like most of it was like not accessible, there was like a tiny little sliver, like what do I want here? Like I still actually have choice, even though if like 99% of me feels like it doesn't. Like there's still a small percentage of me that does. And what's the choice that's in integrity here? and it was to fight like hell to stay alive. Again, not because life is better than death, but because I had work to do and a mission to do that would be better served in a body at this point in time, at least.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're glad you made that choice.
Thank you. Yeah.
And also, so did that come from through your experience where you like at your breaking point? Is that when that message came through in that space? Or not even just message, but more like awareness of, I have a choice here?
Yeah, it was like a series of tiny moments. And this is, there's a principle in the work that I do with the nervous system where, so much of our power is in how we train our attention. And we have to first start by having compassion that our attention is often hijacked. Once it gets to a certain amount of being taken over, we kind of don't have choice. And so it's first acknowledging that that's like a real thing that can happen, unfortunately. But in the same way that I imagine someone like Viktor Frankl, who's in a concentration camp, is able to muster like, it's that this beautiful gift of time and space in the incarnate world gives us like an opportunity to take like moments and like put our spotlight on certain moments and certain states of being in a way that kind of can accumulate more in that direction versus another direction. So it's not like we can just turn the switch, but we can like, like, for example, one of the moments that happened for me when I was in, like you were asking, I literally felt like I was like on the verge of death. I was in the bathtub, and I remember like, it was so part of the symptoms were that it was like kind of being in a constant state of like shock PTSD, like in a war zone. And so even like being aware of something very simple like the physical wall or chair felt like an assault to my senses almost. Wow. But yet I couldn't go inside because it was even scarier inside. So I couldn't be in or out. I was kind of just like in this like almost like torturous place where like if my state was to go into even a little bit more relaxation, it was like, this is why I say torturous. It was like if somebody, what's it called when they like did waterboarding or something where they like force someone's head underwater.
Yeah.
Or like where someone would be trying to sleep and then like trying to like if they started to fall asleep, like zap them awake.
Can't even relax. Like relaxing's not safe.
Exactly. Like the moment that it happens, like some trigger gets pushed on some system that like sends you like a voltage or something that's like 100 more than wherever you were. Mm-hmm. So I had to kind of exist at a really high level of stress all the time.
You're like in fight or flight, but in a totally different, different sense because of the conduit to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and being someone who was like literally trained in a modality for how to help people get out of these states, it was terrifying because I would start to do what you would do to get out of the state. And that would then set the tripwire to go like 100 times worse. But to bring it back to the bathtub, and yes, actually, thank you for that breath there because like, I'm aware that I'm in a different place now, but I'm also aware that there are many people out there that are still in different degrees of that experience. And so, I just want to honor that it's a terrible and scary place to be, and that you're not crazy for being there. It's very real, and there's a wisdom that's happening in the body to be at that level of fright. It's much bigger, whether it was triggered by something like for me, a vaccine, or whether it was triggered by something else. Like, it's not just something that's just generated from your own inherent self, like going crazy. It's not that. There's a healthy response going on there. Yeah. And I just want to honor that, because what I ended up doing was really listening and honoring every bit of the fear and every bit of the rage and every bit of the like shock and every bit of everything, like bit by bit by bit, like taking care of like a feral animal.
Yeah. You're welcome here.
Yes.
Welcome here. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in that moment in the bathtub, I remember like actually like feeling the wall and noticing that like it was safe. Like it was just still, and it was just like, it wasn't doing anything scary. And I literally just kind of like, it took like all of me, but I like took my consciousness and just like transferred it into the sensation of contacting against the wall. And it was like the first time in weeks that I felt like a safe connection between me and something outside my body. And it needed to be something like super neutral, like the freaking wall of the bathroom, that was just solid and like wasn't gonna like be sneaky and do something, which, that's a whole topic. But like the worst kind of trauma is trauma that's not. I mean, that's not. This is my opinion. I would rather it be like direct aggressive trauma than like sneaky Trojan horse trauma that like tells you that it's trying to do something good for you and is like sneakily doing something behind your back. That's the worst kind of trauma. But the freaking bathtub wall was not doing that to me. So I was like, thank you. I mean, I wasn't like, in that moment, I was like, it was much more of like, the feeling was like, again, like being in a war zone and like everything's just like ears ringing and tremoring. But it was like the feeling of, oh, there's like, I couldn't even think of it as a hand because that was like too much at the moment. But it was like that, like, oh, there's contact. Like there's contact. There's something like solid, like in a world that's just spinning. Yeah. And like, it was such a simple moment, but in my training, it's like, okay, maybe you get a moment like once every several days that is like your moment of like sense of freedom and sense of something being easier and something feeling right. Put all of yourself into that moment, into that split moment. Because what you do then is you're rallying what energy you do have, even if it's very little that's left. And you're saying, that's where I want to put it.
I want my attention to go.
That's where I want my attention to go.
Energy flows where our attention goes.
Exactly.
So even if it's like the tiniest little spark of attention, it's like, okay, I'm going to put it right there. Yeah.
Yep. And yeah, you're going to go right back into the dizziness and the pain and the torturous feelings and the mind racing and all the other stuff. But you can remember like, okay, I had a moment. And just kind of be like, I wonder when the next one will come. And I'm not going to force it, but I'm also not going to like give in to, oh, that was just wishful thinking. And like, I'm now like, I give up. I'm just going to be like dragged around by all this. Just kind of like, just waiting, kind of like,
that space of like knowing that you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Even if it's just
I imagine like, in the sense of thinking of it like nervous system freeze, it's like when the animal is playing dead, and maybe they have to do it for a long period of time before there's like a moment that the captor or the predator like looks away, and it's like that was the moment, to take advantage of it. And reserving your energy, because if it's like drained from you, there isn't really a whole lot, and energy is everything. So yeah, I had several moments like that, that just kind of would build. It would be like hell, 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 like moment, hell, 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 moment, and then like just kind of like put those moments on my internal altar.
So like you're building a little Lego tower or something, and it just gets
yeah, and and the this what's coming to my head is a beautiful song that Kira actually taught us with the singing group of like, every time I go into the darkness, I return with fistfuls of jewels. Because while you're in it, it just feels like
you're in it.
Yeah. But it's also like, as I look back on it, it's like, wow, like that darkness was so fertile too. And I think part of why this feels important to share too is, a lot of times, like after coming out of that and being like, mostly on the mend, like I'm like 90% to like remission, and I'm actually, parts of my health are actually even surpassing because there's like deep terrain, like re-inhabitation, deep learning about rebuilding my soil that's like really, really old stuff, much older than the injury. But like a lot of times I'll get comments like, oh, thank God you got over that. Or, oh, like you got out of that. Or like you got away, thank God. Like, and there's like good intention in there.
Yeah.
But it's like,
not really knowing
it wasn't luck,
you in that space.
You guys,
No.
It wasn't luck. It was like freaking warrior practices day in and day out for months. And I don't say that to boast. I say that because I think I needed to learn that we have that kind of fuel and power inside of us as human beings, and that we really don't have to take things sitting down.
Yeah. And with this powerful technology of the body that we have, like, I feel like until we get to any type of state of being extremely ill, there's a conditioning of that victim mentality, right? Of like, oh, poor me, like I'm putting my power outside of me, but also like, how can you resource? And when you're in these spaces of like, there isn't anything that I can really do outside of you, it's like, you're just raw and real and in it. So you're put in this position of like, okay, I'm either gonna lean in and choose to die and go into it, or I'm gonna like really tap into this intuitive knowledge and knowing that my body is. And it's one of the things that I'm so passionate about sharing with people is I'm like, yes, I do believe our external medicines are totally there for a reason, like whether it's herbal or even some Western medicine, right? Like they totally have a purpose.
Totally.
And also like this thing is unfucking real in its healing capabilities and powers.
Yeah.
Like outrageous.
Yeah. Right. Well, and that's where the thing about relationship comes in, right? Because this isn't just a thing. Like this is like a universe that's full of microbes and all kinds of things that have their own agency. We're like a freaking planet.
We are. It's its own intelligence. It's its own, AI is like a big thing right now. And I'm just like, but y'all, this like, that's really
original
cool, like this is the original intelligence. Like let's come back to it. I feel like it's so funny because we had all these people that are like AI, and now there's all these people that are like the body, and I'm like, the body.
Yeah. Well, and so I think that really brings the point too of like, it gives us the reason why simple things are so important, like learning how to have self-respect and self-love. It's not just a thinking thing.
No.
Right. It's like, okay,
it's not just so I can have a better relationship or just so I can have better business or any of that.
Yeah.
It's actually like,
how am I going to relate to all of these human parts of myself in a way that no longer continues the trauma of perpetuating the split between the spiritual and the material? Because I think that's the ultimate trauma. It's like, whether it's kind of completely numbing out to the sacred aspects of life, which I think a lot of our planet has done, or whether it's the sort of bypass option of like trying to kind of be above humanity and somehow like transcend it. Like those are both two sides of the same coin. But when you like actually infuse the sacred into every aspect of being human, that means loving and learning to be in relationship with
everything.
Talking to the parasites in your gut and figuring out what needs to happen so they can like stop chewing up your food, talking to your own, you know, unexplained rage that just like pops up out of nowhere and when you get triggered, and being like, okay, there's something here. There's something to honor and metabolize and walk into life with, like as one of the beings on my team. So it's not running the show, but I'm also not suppressing it. It's like, okay, now there's room for rage at my table too. It's part of my team.
Yeah. It brings in this piece of living that I've really been more intentional about stepping into, of every aspect of how we move through the world is a ritual. Like our life is a ritual. Everything we do is an altar, doing the dishes, vacuuming, like all these mundane human tasks, being with our body, whether it's sitting, and it can look like sitting in meditation or just like talking to ourselves. But every single aspect of our life, driving, is a ritual. And so when we start to change the perspective of how we view this life, and even all these like weird quote unquote mundane aspects, it's like, no, that's so magnificent.
Yeah.
But we have this like programming and conditioning that's like, I got to drive from point A to point B. I was walking by the river yesterday morning and was just like standing out on the rocks in the middle of it. And this is, something I get constantly reminded of. But I had originally wanted to walk the whole trail and realized at some point that I didn't have the time to. And as I was standing out there on the rocks, like praying and singing, the message that kept coming through was like, it's about the journey. It's not about the destination. And we hear that all the time, right? But it's also one of those things where I feel like it's a constant reminder of coming back into presence, of like, it's about being right here, right now, in this magnificent moment, and making a ritual and deep presence out of every single step that you take and every single breath that you make. And then once you start to view and move through the world in that way, everything is miraculous. And miraculous just sitting here.
It's true.
It's amazing.
It's true.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I would say a lot of like maybe the latter part of 2023 and last year, into like a good chunk of last year, I was in, I would call it like the new like beginners, like cosmic, like being like a new again sort of baby phase almost. Like having like made it through and like knowing that, even though my body was still healing, like there was life force was strong enough that it was carrying me forward instead of me having to be like in battle to like ensure that it was anymore. And it was so interesting because I think it was like a really interesting, statement about our culture, like how that time was for me, right? Because it was a miraculous time. It was like being given life again, and everything seeming like the same way that like a young child is just like, whoa, like everything. Everything. And yet kind of also parsing apart like who and what could actually meet me in that place and recognize that, and in what situations I kind of just felt like, I don't know, treated like a child, I guess, to extend the metaphor, which was actually a lot. And to notice like all layers of like shame and stuff come, and to like have that moment of being like, no, this is just because people are operating in a different paradigm than I am. And it's not like I'm not less of a person because I'm like in this like
childlike state.
Yeah. I'm actually like, it's actually like so incredible
to be that vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because, even long before all this happened, I felt like part of my passion and reason for being here is I really want to bring back sort of the New Earth Village, right? I really want to bring back what it feels like to exist in a web where, rites of passage and initiations are just woven into the way that we do things, where that light spark in people is like we see it because we're trained from childhood to see it, or we're not untrained from seeing it, I guess is the better way to say that. And like village and community structures are designed to draw that forth, are designed to honor that. Even like a child might not be named right away because they're waiting to see how the being expresses itself first. So there's like such a dignity and such a respect and such a attunement that's afforded to all of life, and not just people, right?
All aspects
of life. And so I guess like, in the bigger sense of things, it's like, wow, there is like the healthy rage and the necessary aspect of justification and integrity and putting things back into balance, which means also naming where harm is done.
Yes.
And then in a way that can safely be done also within this larger paradigm, which understands like the only reason that any being would do harm and do something so against natural law is because they themselves have lost that soul spark. They themselves are suffering from extreme trauma of soul loss and not seeing, to the point that they think the only way to be safe, whether or not it's coming from a place of actually wanting to protect others or self-greed, like, is to sort of bypass nature's laws and be like, we're going to control a situation.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it's just that it goes back to that same space of our outer world as a collective, as well as like our personal outer world is a direct reflection of what's going on here. So when you have these people that are in these positions of power, quote unquote, that have this same collective loss of their soul, fragments in a way.
Yeah.
And they have certain pull over how things are maneuvered in our greater world. That collective shadow directly impacts and harms others.
Yeah.
Just like as if, with us as individuals, our own personal shadows from whatever they are, they come out when we get triggered by someone in our world. We may unintentionally say something we don't mean. And it can be words, it can be actions. There's so many different ways that can manifest. But it's happening. It happened. It's happening on a global scale. And you are one of those that was directly affected by it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and yes, thank you. And we all were.
Yeah,
and we all are.
Yeah. In a more visceral way.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I love the word visceral, actually. Yeah. Thank you for pointing to the visceral. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, just this morning I was like, wow, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to come in because it's like another round of toxic metals clearing through my brain and my nervous system right now. And there's like a kind of, it's such a, one of the things that gets me through and, the long healing journey is like literally like it's not just a concept to me anymore that like I am part of Gaia. Like as I'm like pulling toxic elements out of my blood, like I am literally like envisioning Earth's rivers like clearing of poison and pollutants and intoxicants. as my own like will comes back, because it was like so squeezed, like my ability to even speak, my ability to sit up, because it was like affecting my central nervous system to the point that I couldn't even stand, like without my legs kind of collapsing and like really weird things happening. But like as I like regain my sense of like being able to hold myself up, even like I literally like imagine like Earth's indigeneity, Earth's like inherent will, just kind of like, like sitting upright, which I know she is doing. She's helping me and I'm helping her. And we're all at some point, it's like, unity consciousness, which a lot of people have talked about, like, as I understand it, it's not everything being one in the way they were when we're like new. It's having separated and experienced independence and then like returning to relationship with our like inherent, sense of choice, and like with that awareness and that wisdom, then kind of melting and surrendering back into like total unification again. It's like a whole different level and principle of unity. It's like a braid instead of a mesh. It's like a wow, like where does Mother Earth end and I begin, and vice versa? I don't know. And yet somehow there's still like this beautiful respect and differentiation and individuation too. So
I love that. So just like leaning into just so beautiful, getting to like fully embody that interwoven connection that we have, like actually embody it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's so interesting with spirituality nowadays, and even a lot of the different things that we do as funny humans to get back in connection with Mother Earth, which all of it is like so beautiful, right? And I also feel like it's really easy for us to like get in our heads about it, like, oh, I'm going to do all these plant medicines, and I had this experience of being like interwoven, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's beautiful. And also there's this moment of like, but are you actually like dropping in with her every moment of every day and really feeling that embodiment? This is something with a few different aspects of what's going on in my life that I've been going through that have brought me to some deep depths, where I'm like now in a space of really embodying certain aspects, and like, oh, and so seeing my funny humanness of like, oh, my rational mind like knows this and thinks this and can understand this from a logical point of view, and by understanding it from a logical point of view, it's like I thought that I was being in a way, but then when I actually am now in this space of embodying, like, whoa, that's really funny. I thought it would thought that was what this is, and now that I'm,
it's a whole nother thing. I honestly feel like embodiment is awakening. I mean, that's
it feels
how
way more awakening than
in order to drop into your cells, even just one layer deeper, like you have to, like whatever was trapped there that caused the trauma of not being embodied is like felt. Like, it's a lot.
But it's so beautiful when you get there,
and it's so worth it.
Yeah, it's so worth it. So it's like, as you're talking, I'm getting these chills, and then I'm just like feeling my interwoven connection. I'm just like, oh my God, this is so amazing.
Yeah. And it's so dynamic. It's like, like as we're talking about it, like there's a softness and a aliveness to things. I mean, it's very animist, right? Which interestingly, like, it's only been like 1% of history, like tiny, that we've actually been like living outside of animism. Because for most of history, humans were like, just like, yeah, obviously, like the world is animate, like everything's alive.
Yeah, duh.
Everything has like its own, sovereign like soul, and
we got
life force.
Lost there for a little bit.
It's like this tiny sliver that we're like inside of, well, we have been inside of for this like little bit of history that just feels like so much of our reality because we happen to have just come in like in the days of it, but it's actually so tiny.
It makes it so much nicer to think about it because it feels like we've been in it for so long.
Right?
We're already in
Yeah.
that space of coming back and just seeing that everything around us is so animate and alive. And I was listening, I don't remember, it was again, I was walking by the river one day and I must have been listening to another podcast or something, but or just speaking to how like kind of Mother Earth has been in this space of, and the universe in general, everything that we've been going through of like losing ourselves and these soul fragments and our connection, like our real true connection. It's like that obviously had to happen. Like nothing happens by accident. Like that obviously had to happen. Like go to this complete extreme. Oh, I was having a conversation with a friend by the river. We were talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
We had to go to this extreme, and Mother just had to be like, I've been here, you remembered me, but I now need to kind of, it's like the mama bird like pushing her baby out of the nest. Like, you have to go be without me in order to remember, like really, truly remember what it is to be deeply in connection to me and revere that. You know, how special and deeply important that this connection is and how it like, there is no disconnection, but we have to get super disconnected in order to even remember that, because we get really comfortable and then we're like, oh, this is so great. Oh my God, everything's connected. We're like manifesting, everything's right here. It's so great. But it's like, okay, that's awesome. And also like part of this experience is remembering that we are, but in order to remember that we are, we have to go into this extreme of that we're not.
Yeah. And what you described just there of the relationship with Gaia was so beautiful. Like such a example of how like real relationship has no coercion, but it's also not abandoning. It's like this very deep, secure attachment place of like unconditional presence and witness. And also self-respect. Like she's like, all right, well, you've gone too far in that direction, so I'm going to have a hurricane or a, you know, it's like she's taking care of herself still. It's not like she's just taking it sitting down.
Oh no, definitely not.
Yeah, but there's a inherent like choicefulness that's built into this relationship that we have with the higher power and with Gaia as well. That is just so that's why, I mean, ultimately it's such an opportunity. I do feel like, you know, all of the, you know, ancient traditions talk about this time we're in right now as like the time that we actually get to mature and have you could say an awakening, but it also could just be like the next stage of development of like maybe like
Teenager
a little
to
bit
adulthood,
past or like like
angsty
rebellious teenager
stage.
that like needs to just like light everything on fire stage. Literally. Yeah. And to recognize, you know, like you said, like we, like in order to do that, it required being numb from the fact that we are her and we are that we are burning our own selves up, you know.
It's like the shadow, you have to be able to see it in order to do something about it, which means acknowledging it, like seeing it, acknowledging it, going into it, and not going into it from a space of defining yourself by it, but by finding a way to transmute it, right? We bring in the gene keys, transmute it into a gift.
Yeah.
And then into its like highest, most enlightened expression.
Yes. Yeah. Transmutation being the like portal or the third way, right? Otherwise, like the two options that trauma has are either to be discharged and dispelled onto others, or to be swallowed and like turn and fester into chronic illness or, you know, depression, anxiety, all of these, you know, and we have like skyrocketing rates of illness on the planet right now. Like it was like, I think early 1900s, like 1907, it was like 7%. And now we're like at like 60 or like in the 60s, I think. Wow. Like the amount of percent of people that have some kind of chronic illness diagnosis, it's massively exponentially growing. Wow. And just to say that after this era we just went through with COVID, that has just had another exponential boost that was huge, like really, really huge. And
because even that period of time was manipulated in a way to put people into a space of fear. And there's a lot of people that are still operating from that space, which is
yeah,
one of the reasons
Yeah.
why those
yeah,
numbers are
Right.
increasing.
right.
So on this topic, would you like to be very real about your experience and to speak very bluntly to what happened?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I've shared more about like the aftermath and the healing. But yeah, I guess,
I think it needs to be voiced.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you said it when you said like, I decided to like have a visceral experience of, yeah. And it's, even as I say it, it's like so interesting because anytime I've had a massive blow to my system, body, this isn't the first time, but this was by far the worst, taking the COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
It has ultimately, because I took the transmutation path, like led to like unhooking things that were much deeper than the trigger. So I guess I just want to preface by saying like, yeah, I'm holding both paradigms as I tell the story in the sense that like, yes, there has been like underlying pieces that I believe needed to be touched and triggered so that they could be revealed and healed. But it also doesn't condone or make okay the fact that the trigger itself, which was the vaccine that almost killed me, like had energetics in it that were harmful and like we have said, like need to be spoken to and need to be named. And it's taken me a long time as someone who's like been deeply like empathic my whole life, very sensitive, to recognize, oh yeah, like so this like confession or truth telling in the truest sense is not only about speaking and saying like where we feel we have done wrong, to feel the relief that comes from getting that off our chest, but it also comes from naming when we've been harmed, to not hold that ourselves, right? Because in a way, like if healing is relationship, it's like, no, I don't need by saying that the vaccine, I mean, it may as well have killed me because it was kind of miraculous. It didn't.
Yes.
like I don't need that to be a reason for. I don't need to give fuel to the fire of like more finger pointing and more drama and more like revenge. That's not what this is about.
No.
But there is like, there's like a whole kind of paradigm that like shifts and settles over an entire system when like stories, like I think of, was it, who was the like South African president that like did those peace trials in that time? You know what I'm talking about? And they like just brought people together and like victims and perpetrators shared their stories.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I can't.
I want to say Mandela, but I think it was someone else.
I think it was someone else.
Yeah. But like those stories like just blew me away when I read about those in college, because it was like, oh, wait, we're not like trying to figure out how many years to put them in prison. And like, not that there isn't a place for certain things like that, but like when a whole culture comes together and hears what went out of balance between all the sides of a story, and it just kind of is in the space and people metabolize it together in the same way that people do a grief ceremony together. And so like no one person is carrying that, but it like the whole can like ripple through. Stuff shifts.
Yeah. Well, and it leads
relationships
to deeper
shift.
understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah. And compassion and empathy for everyone's side of things.
Exactly.
Because when we don't have that, it's very easy to, point the finger and blame. And like you said, even the beings that are on the other side of cultivating this medicine that was put out. Say that very sarcastically and with a lot of quotations.
Right.
They have shadows and stories and lineages and histories that we know.
Yeah.
Like that we know absolutely nothing about. And it's really sad to know that there are just people out there that are hurting so badly.
Yeah. And who lost children and family like overnight and just so in shock. Yeah. And this is where I think the important part that I want to bring is why it's a harder kind of trauma that requires more of this voice work, truth telling, because like I could talk about the fact that I was in pain and having all of these really awful experiences, and those were awful, like the immediate impact, like the physiological impact of taking the medicine. But what was almost worse, and I spoke a little bit about this when I talked about coming out and seeing like who could meet me, like was like just the different reality and paradigm of being like how I was reacted to while I was suffering, right? And a whole range of things, from like pity and sympathy to straight up gaslighting to coming away from the doctor, like basically with them just putting like anxiety like on my thing, like that was the problem when I was like having literal like inflamed heart to the point that it was like felt like I was having a heart attack.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's not okay.
Yeah.
Just like the shadow of the system that we're in right now that is supposed to be there to help. That should be the intention.
Yeah.
And yet, I was watching the preview of that documentary that you sent me last night, and just like what the woman was saying about how the fact that sick people are the ones that are having to do this healing for themselves is beyond. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why is that like that? Like, we have a whole entire system set up that is supposed to be what it's there for, is to support. And I'm not saying that it doesn't in certain ways, but this massive, I don't even know what to call it. The massive experience that we all went through.
Yeah.
For it to like in times of deep trial and suffering actually cause more harm. Really just speaks to the depths of the shadow of it, which is again one of the reasons that like we had to go through it in order for it to be exposed. Because that's the only way that change is going to occur.
Yeah.
And the repercussions or not, it doesn't make it okay.
Yeah. And I'm thinking again about this theme of how relationship is what heals, or healing is relationship. And I don't judge any of the people who freaked out around me when I was suffering, because I understand that it was their own. I know it's not personal, but like, and it happened on all sides of everything. And sometimes like the people who were, like wary of the vaccine were sometimes the ones that were the most reactive toward me. And it almost even felt as if kind of like the metaphor that came at the time was like the feeling of like if you were the girl that got raped on campus and people were like, well, we told you not to like go out to that party. You should have known better. Instead of like kind of just like what you really need to do when someone's been through something like that, which is to like welcome them in, give them a cup of tea and a blanket and like hold them so their body can shake and release the trauma that they've just been through, so
that they don't have to hold it alone.
And people were so fixated on whose narrative was right. And regardless of the different levels of truth or not, or right or wrong, like that paradigm of like being fixated on what's right above the paradigm of like what relationship is needed to heal this whole situation, no matter what side anyone is on. Like, and that's why that moment with the wall, and I think about other moments where a lot of healing happened at one moment, and it was usually like when someone was able to let go completely of all of that and just like hold my head or hold my hand and just kind of like be a presence. Yeah.
It's the most beautiful gift that we can give each other.
Yeah.
To just be and witness.
Yeah. And witness gets oversimplified. Witnessing is sitting in the center of your being and being fully present and not close to what's happening right in front of you, to the point that your own reactive tendencies are not coming into play, and you're able to like fully sit with like a deep
but without taking it on.
Yeah.
But also without closing off.
It really is. I mean, witnessing is unity consciousness.
That was one of the most profound things I learned in the grief ceremony. Sitting behind someone else, because I hold space a lot, right? But that was a very different space of witness, and I learned a lot.
Yeah. It's beautiful to talk about this right in the eclipse and equinox portal, because I don't know about you, but I always feel the balance of the masculine and feminine energies right at the equinox. And to me, what we're speaking of really is that when there's no more rift between left brain, right brain, between feeling and intellect, between navigating incarnate world and being deeply immersed in the spiritual world, like there's that perfect integrity of having boundaries in place so that you don't take on what's not yours to take on. And then there's this like softness that's so open that you could literally like, this is funny, but like I was talking to a friend yesterday about how I was going to do this podcast today, and we were talking about transmutation, and I was remembering that scene in The Matrix where Neo like finally like elevates into his like badass like self, and it's like the bullets just like he's like bending time and space, and they're just like like just like let you fall over to the side. It's like, bring it on, because I know I'm not that, and I'm also am all that, but I am operating at this place that's just so so much space for all of it, like the ultimate alchemist, that you just know, like, yeah, I'll take a bullet because it's just gonna.
Bring it on.
Exactly.
Alchemize that shit all day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, through your experience, how has that shifted or brought through the work that you do and how you're showing up and being in this and serving in this world now?
Well, thanks for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because when I think about it, that aspect of it, I feel like I just like, universe is like, okay, time to crash course your way to like graduation really fast on this particular thing that you said you wanted to learn, because I was, I was like deeply in the midst of my training in trauma resolution through somatics and neuro rewiring. Yeah. And I had, already been through shamanic trainings and other kinds of initiations, a whole bout with parasites and things when I was in my early 20s from traveling. And it's so funny because before I took the vaccine, and this is a whole part of the story I haven't shared much today, but just to say, like, my dad died of COVID Delta variant right before all that happened, before I took the vaccine. And even in that, which was a really intense process for my family and I, like, I was checking in with myself regularly in the way that I was trained in my body. And yes, it was hard and it was an emotional roller coaster, but there was like body integrity and a sense of presence and strength and capacity and safety in my body that I had built. And I remember having the thought, even in the midst of all that, like having a moment of like doing a body scan and being like, wow, this is the most embodied I've ever been in my entire life. And it feels amazing. And that was not very long before I took the vaccine, and it was all just like, and I don't think that's an accident because, I don't know. I don't think I would have been able to do the transmutative work that I did had I not arrived at that point. And also arrived at a point where I felt clear about certain life goals and dreams that I had that were not in alignment with a lot of other aspects and relationships in my life at the time. And so along with the vaccine, it also was like a lot of other things were leveled out in my life. A lot of things were completely swept away. It wasn't just my health. And so the work, though, is like the one thing that stayed throughout. It just like went through this like, deep, it was like the phase where the person has to go out into the cave for 40 days and you've been like
actually
training,
practice what you've been training.
Yeah. Like you've been training and learning and practicing on people and whatever. And now it's like initiation, and you like don't eat and sleep, and you're like in the dark for however long with like the rock rolled over the door and the tomb. Yeah. Like that's what it was like. And that was part of what helped me through it too. I was just
like a Jedi warrior training. It was like, oh, you've done all this nice education. That's so nice for you.
That's so nice for you.
Oh, you're feeling it. Oh, that's amazing. Okay, it's time for this thing now. You're ready. Cut away everything else in your life.
Yeah.
And just be with it.
Yeah. And like,
what
the
a
most,
gift. And also,
if you want to really learn how to transform, my medicine animal is the butterfly. And it's like, okay, the more radical your shift is going to be, the more vulnerable and mushy you have to be during the phase when you're being turned into the new self. So that was my cocoon. That was my like goo. And now, now I'm actually birthing a school called Body and Soul Sanctuary. We opened April 2nd. I have my first 5 members are already enrolled. And it's like, it's kind of like getting out from behind my like credentials in neuroscience and being like, no, yeah, like actually I'm doing soul retrieval. Yeah, there's science to it, but it's basically soul retrieval. Like, that's what we need is to like bring our bodies and our souls back together. And I have not had a single moment of sitting with a person since all of this where I have felt an ounce of doubt, like in my capacity to sit through whatever. Like it's just that witnessing that we're talking about. It's like, oh yeah, I got that. So that's what's changed. Like not the direction, but like a whole nother layer of capacity. And I would say humility too. Like whatever aspects of my ego were doing it because it was like, oh, it's safe to be a healer, but I don't want to be the one that's vulnerable.
Doesn't work that way.
Completely twisted.
Yeah.
It's like, no. Like crash course on being absolutely vulnerable. And there's dignity in that. Vulnerability, not as a weakness, but as just like it's
a strength.
Yeah, there's not something to like push against here. It's just, it's like,
it because just is. When you're being real, there's nothing else that's there but the realness. That cocoon mushy feeling that you're talking about with the butterfly. That's kind of how, in some ways, how I feel where I'm at right now. Being very vulnerable and real. Like this podcast is a great expression of that. That's what this is. The one that there's actually an episode that came out today that I recorded a few days ago, and it's just a solo episode with me. And those ones are really vulnerable because I'm like, who just wants to listen to me, and so, but like owning that space and being like, this is just how I'm showing up right now. Like this is what's real and alive in my world. And and that transmuting like here, but also in relationships and in other areas of my life. And that aspect of like, that is the only way I like know how to be anymore. It's just real. And because I don't, any of the other ways, I'm just like, it feels like such like a contortion and a force in a way. And I'm just like, I'm not going to mold myself into something that's not real. Like, why would I do that? That takes energy.
That's like that quote by a nice man about like where it takes, at some point, it takes more energy to hold yourself tight in a bud than the energy to blossom. And that's not always the case, but like when you get to that point, and I think that's like a deeply surrendered place, like where you really see that freedom is greater than something that you're controlling, but something benevolent and trustworthy, which takes a lot to lean into when you've been through betrayal trauma, which we've all been through. To name like what we all went through the last few years was betrayal trauma, like on a collective scale. And so that's the hardest to...
Betrayal and abandonment.
What's that?
Betrayal and abandonment.
Yeah. Well, because there's no room in betrayal trauma for like, it's different than like when someone makes a mistake and they're like, oh, wow, like, I'm so sorry, that wasn't my intention. And like, how can I make it better? Or like, I'm working on being better and like, let's do this together. No, betrayal trauma is like, you're crazy. Like, that didn't happen. Like, I am not, basically, it's not being in a relationship at all. It's not a real relationship at all. And when you're faced with that, it's really hard to trust, to know what to trust. But the remedy is like, you get to get really good at knowing what real healthy relationship and secure attachment and trust feels like. Because it's the opposite of all the stuff that you just went through. So you can be like, oh, it's that's where I need to go. Yeah.
So much wisdom for all of life. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you for providing this space. It's perfect. I've been checking in with like next step of my process, and it keeps being like, share your story, share the vulnerable parts more publicly, and such a beautiful like alignment to be able to cross paths with you and share.
I agree. even just getting to bear witness to you.
I know, I feel that.
Mm-hmm. It's a big gift for me.
Oh, that's really, really sweet to hear you say. Yeah. So like working on receiving that and also finding it so healing, like a healing balm.
Both big healing right now. Is there anything else that's sitting on your heart that you feel like sharing as we start to close?
It's just like, just the feeling of like sweetness and tenderness that's coming with like the springtime, not just of like the season of spring coming, but of like this era of springtime, like in the sense of like what I experienced of like being new again. Like I think humanity is being invited into that right now. And that I guess it seems like a paradox, but instead of sort of trying to hurry up and move on past the things that are being carried and the burdens from this last chapter, like actually what will help us to move on is to free ourselves by like allowing them to be witnessed, and allowing them to make their way like back into the ground where they can like become seeds for something else. We don't have to carry those things in our bodies and our psyches. There's an option that's different than finger pointing, and there's an option that's different than swallowing. There's an option of, fertilizing the ground with the lessons of our past. And by naming them, we also help stop the patterns from continuing that are still going on in those directions that are harmful. We choose the script, and there's so much beauty in it. And like you spoke so beautifully to ritual before, like our lives get to be a ritual of changing that script. And we're in this together.
Yeah.
And a lot of us are like putting this first and foremost in our lives. And so enjoy the movement.
Yeah.
I guess it's like my like Sagittarius rallying call. Let's
I love
do
that you have
this.
so much Sag. I've got
I know. It was so hard to be that sick as a Sag because I love to travel and be so bright and so athletic. And I was just like, but I learned, you can do all that stuff in your psyche.
Yeah, you can travel. I was talking with Willis about that when he was on the podcast too. We touched on travel, and I was like dismantling this narrative of Monika as this traveler in a way that I used to be, even though I still do, but it's different now. And because it was more coming from ego and running away at that point in time, but I love to travel. But I got to do this like inner psychic journey, and we can travel right here. We don't always have to go seeking out the most foreign destination and the most best place to go eat or whatever in the world. Like it's the most amazing travel happens right here in our own psyche.
Right.
Yeah.
And that neither one of them has to be better or worse. It's just like, what chapter is calling you now to the next frontier?
Yeah. Love it. It's so fun. What a beautiful journey.
Thank you.
Love you. Good luck, friends.